Thanks for waking up with us.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Staying Focused for Jesus. Hope each and every one of you are having a blessed day in the Lord Jesus Christ as always. This video is going to piggyback off of the sermon we did yesterday and also some other sermons. So you're going to find out some very, very interesting things. I'm also going to show you some personal things in relation to this, more specifically on about being a Hebrew Israelite according to the flesh. Now, many people like to go the route of proving it through DNA, taking a DNA test. But if you actually study those tests, they are not what you think they are. They are not what you think they are. It's a lot of manipulation that can happen and has happened in regards to those tests. When you understand science and you understand the baseline data that they are using to determine how they are grouping people or wherever people come from, then you understand what I'm saying. And when you understand, let's say they take somebody from Ireland, just because somebody is from Ireland doesn't mean that they are necessarily what we call Irish. For example, if you take the baseline DNA of people here in America and you do DNA tests on people to try to connect it back and see where they came from, then the data is going to lead back to the baseline people. Or the data can be manipulated based off of what is known. Now, historically, they know, or historically they believe that, well, most people believe that the Irish are the modern day Irish we have today. In the same way, people believe that the Jews of today in the land, they believe that they are the ancient people. In the same way, people believe that the Edomites of today are white people, when historically we can prove that they were not what we call white, but in fact black. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying when it comes to the whole DNA test. Now, I do believe that DNA tests serve a purpose, but using it to prove who you are or are not, there's a lot of things that could happen. And you got to realize, look who you're trusting. The very people that you say you don't trust is the very people you're trusting with your DNA who are manipulating DNA. Me trusting and knowing that I'm a Hebrew of the flesh is by revelation of the Spirit. Is by the consistent evidence and proof and truth that the Lord Jesus Christ has given me. It's because of the scriptures. Not because I took a DNA test or I did or didn't take a DNA test. Not none of that stuff. It was by revelation, because I was not looking for it. I told y'all this many times. I wasn't looking for a Hebrew identity or all these different things. I was my own man, as we say. You know, never really had that issue. Some people do have those issues. I grew up pretty well off in comparison to other people, other black people. So I was simply reading the scriptures and like, dang, why does it sound like black people? And so, as any scientist or researcher, studier does, they pose a question and then they come against that question. That's how you do it. Like, this is basic science, y'all. If something is true, it's going to stand up against everything else. So when I'm presenting evidence that's obviously going to support my point, but your job is to come against that evidence if you can. And really what I'm doing is I'm only presenting evidence in contrast to what we've been told and saying like, hey, this is what they told you, but this says and shows differently, and the evidence supports that what they told you is wrong. It's on you to discern if what I'm telling you is true, what's true in comparison to what you have been told. Right? So, like you have Queen Elizabeth I on the screen. They told you this is what she looks like. But they didn't tell you that Queen Elizabeth, she put on white lead makeup to make her skin appear white because she had messed up skin because she had contracted smallpox. And the Lord cursed her beauty because she was very vain. You see what I'm saying? That opens up, that broadens your thinking. That broadens your thinking like, interesting. Because they don't tell you, they tell you, hey, this is who she is and you need to accept it. It's impossible for her to be black. It's impossible. That's what they tell you. But if I say something like that, or anybody else says something like that, it's impossible for so-and-so to be white. Like, how dare you? But if we say something like, the evidence doesn't support this and I don't believe it, let me show you. Oh, no, go to hell, you black devil. That's pretty much what people say. They don't even want to look at the evidence. So, again, this is what they say she looks like. The evidence does not support that she looked like this. They don't tell you, again, that she wore white lead makeup that made her skin end up being worse because it had lead in it. They don't tell you that she was a trendsetter and the rest of the women, they were doing what she was doing. Dyeing their hair and stuff like that. They don't tell you that she is probably, not this woman specifically, but the real Queen Elizabeth is the originator of the term, you could say modern day term, a brunette. But they have applied brunette another way. I'm going to show you. So, these again are some of the contemporary descriptions of her. And I mentioned these in the video yesterday. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, then you go back and watch the video yesterday. Because it ties into this. All this ties together. Because most of what we've been taught from history is truth that has been manipulated into lies. So you got to remember that when somebody's telling you a lie, most likely there's some truth in it. Most of the time, a lie is very, I'm going to say very truthful, because you be like, huh? Most of the time, a lie has a lot of truth in it. Most of the time, a lie is mostly truth, but it's that one little bit of rat poison that makes it a lie that throws people off. And we know that you don't need a lot of rat poison to poison somebody. This is why people get confused, because they don't know how to discern, because they're poisoned. So when you're presenting this stuff, they don't get it. They don't get it. Oh, no, but this is truthful. They have no ability to discern, rightly divide. See, if you were obedient to the scriptures, thank you, Holy Spirit. This is powerful right here. If you were obedient to the scriptures, being able to rightly divide the scriptures, as the scriptures say, then don't you think that you will be able to rightly divide everything else? So you know why people are not able to rightly divide this information this knowledge, this wisdom, this understanding, is because they're not rightly dividing the scripture, because they're not in line with the scripture. God said that he will give people over to a strong delusion. What is a strong delusion? A strong delusion comes, well, obviously it comes from God, but who is God using to do it? The devil. False prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing. The false prophets of the world come to you with truth, but they manipulate it in the form of witchcraft by manipulating the word, causing more confusion, having you to believe a lie, thinking that you're believing the truth. A strong delusion. So he's bringing that upon the people because they're not obedient to the word of God, the very word of God that they are professing. Not rightly dividing the word of truth, which is why they can't rightly divide simple truth like this. And they get confused. To their detriment. Now, we know we all get confused, but we know that's a term. We say, I'm confused what you're saying. Can you explain better? Okay, I get it now. We're not confused to go into a strong delusion. So, Phoenician ambassador, her face is comely rather than handsome, but she is tall and well formed with good skin, though swarthy. She has fine eyes. You going to say that this is a lie? You going to say all these witnesses and every piece of information that we give is a lie? Last time I checked, I have a right. I have a right to face my accusers. I have a right to present my case in court. But you know how it is in America. You're guilty. It's not innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty. Guilty until you can prove that you're innocent. So that's exactly what people do. You're guilty. I don't care what you got to say. You're guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. So you're not gonna let me prove my case. It don't matter. You're guilty. Then when you get in court and you outshine them, then then they still got excuses. So, what I would like to know, and I would have to do some more research later on, is the years, because obviously you see right here 1557, and this one is 1596, and this one is 1598. So obviously this is later in her life, but like some of these descriptions, I'm wondering at what age were they describing. I mean, it's not too hard to do. All you gotta do is take when she was born, subtract this description from when she was born, then you would know. But I'm just being fair in my judgment, because in some descriptions they say they describe her as tall, and in other descriptions they say, well, she wasn't really tall, whatever. So you gotta take that into consideration also. So Sir James Melville says her hair is more reddish than yellow and curled in appearance naturally. So she was a black woman with reddish. We have to find that. We're going to look at that a little bit more. But just to keep it simple, reddish, brown, ruddy hair. So right here, Francesco says she's short and ruddy in complexion and very strongly built. And this is in 1597. Now, this was back in 1557. So maybe she had a walking problem. Maybe she had a slump back and she didn't look as tall as she used to be, and so she looked short to him. Or maybe he was tall and he was like, man, she's short. You gotta take all that into consideration. But we do see a common denominator: swarthy and ruddy in complexion, and these are actual quotes of people speaking about Queen Elizabeth. So Paul Hensner, her face oblong, fair but wrinkled, her eyes small. This is like 1598, so she's up there in age, yet black and pleasant. Her nose a little hook, her lips narrow, and her teeth black. We know her teeth were black because of the sugar. Her hair was of an auburn color, but false. And her hair was that auburn color. It was naturally that, but remember, she dyed it. She dyed her hair to make it, look more like it used to be. Upon her head she had a small crown. Her bosom was uncovered, as all the English ladies have it till they marry. Her hands were slender, her fingers rather long, and her stature neither tall nor low. So he said she wasn't short or tall. So that tells you, you discern that. It's easy to discern when you know what you're doing. To some people she looked tall, to some people she looked short. But in reality, she wasn't tall, she wasn't too tall, and she wasn't too short. To Francisco, she looked short. To the ambassador, she looked tall. You know, obviously she probably looked taller in her younger years, right? In comparison to when she's older. How many older people have you seen that are you know what I'm saying, shorter? But when you see your younger pictures, you're like, dang, what happened? They look, you know, tall, they look stout. Her air was stately, and her manner of speaking mild and obliging. And then Sir Francis Bacon described her as tall of stature. So, we don't know what year that was, but you get the point, hopefully. Sir John Hayward says, slender and straight. So she had a slender body. You know, when somebody's slender, if they're long, they look tall. If they're long, they can be short, but if they're long, they look taller. And then, you know, it says she was, you know, very strongly built. She was, you know, a well-built woman. She didn't look frail, but she was slender. So she was probably she was probably slim thick. Slender and straight, her hair inclined to pale yellow, her forehead large and fair, her eyes lively and sweet, but short-sighted, her nose somewhat rising in the mist. Her countenance was somewhat long, but yet of admirable beauty, so she had a long face, and a most delightful composition of majesty and modesty. So this is back in 1599, very youthful, still in appearance, seeming no more than 20 years of age. So we had a description from 1557, and in 1559, you know, Thomas Platter wrote this, but was he given this, you know, this was written in 1559, but did he give the description at what age? Was she like 60 years old, or did he see her when she was in her 20s, seeming no more than 20, or was she 30 or 40 and she looked like she was in her 20s? You know, I'm just being fair with that judgment. I don't know, but I'm just showing you that there are historical records of her appearance, and they are credible records, and they support that she was ruddy and she had swarthy skin. So we're going to go to our next point, and this is on this website, Historic UK, the History and Heritage Accommodation Guide, and you see the classic picture, right? What we call this whitewashed image. Remember, her skin was like this because she put that white lead makeup on. We have historical records of that, and the women of that time period, they did the same thing, and the women ain't doing nothing different. These women be putting these makeup on, they be looking lighter than what they are. And why a lot of women put that makeup on? To hide the imperfections in their skin, so they can appear perfect. So although lots of portraits exist of Elizabeth, she did not pose for many of them. Perhaps she was a little vain, and we know that for a fact. If she disliked a particular picture, she would have it destroyed. So they came up with whatever pictures they wanted to. Her Secretary of State, Robert Cecil, an astute diplomat, worded it carefully because he didn't want to get in trouble. Many painters have done portraits of the Queen, but none has sufficiently shown her looks or charms. Therefore, Her Majesty commands all manner of persons to stop doing portraits of her until a clever painter has finished one which all other painters can copy. Her Majesty, in the meantime, forbids the showing of any portraits which are ugly until they are improved. So, we know she has some self-esteem issues. And if you look at this image in comparison to this one definitely looks like a whitewashed image. If you take all that off, you could definitely see a black woman. I can see how they did that. But we know how they got down. But hey, maybe that's how she wanted to be portrayed. And maybe it was a combination of both. Maybe that's how she wanted to be portrayed. and maybe, they rolled with it and said, hey, she's white, so we're going to stick with it because it worked to our benefit. So it says, so what does she really look like? Quotes from visitors to her court can perhaps shed some light. In her 22nd year, her figure and face are very handsome. She has such an air of dignified majesty that no one could ever doubt that she is a queen. In her 24th year, although her face is comely rather than handsome, she is tall and well formed, with a good skin, although swarthy. She has fine eyes, and above all, a beautiful hand with which she makes display. So that's why I said what I said earlier, because I knew I was going to bring this up. I was just trying to get you in the right mindset. So in this article, they're saying that this is according to the years when they were speaking these things. So in her 32nd year, her hair was more reddish than yellow, curled naturally in appearance. In her 64th year, when anyone speaks of her beauty, she says she was never beautiful. Nevertheless, she speaks of her beauty as often as she can. In her 65th year, her face is oblong, fair but wrinkled. Her eyes small yet black and pleasant. Her nose a little hooked. And you see it says her teeth black, a fault the English seem to suffer from because of their great use of sugar. She wore false hair and that red. Why? Because she was 65 years old. So, like I said that purposely. Then it is known, however, that she contracted smallpox in 1562, which left her face scarred. She took to wearing white lead makeup to cover the scars. In later life, she suffered loss of her hair and her teeth. In the last few years of her life, she refused to have a mirror in any of her rooms. So because of her vanity, perhaps we shall never know exactly what Elizabeth looked like. Well, we know she didn't look like that. And if she did, it was because she had to make this white makeup on. But we know for a fact that she was a black woman. But they ain't going to tell you that. Oh, no, she wasn't black. But the evidence supports that she was. Doesn't say that she was white and she wore white makeup. It said that she was ruddy. It said that she was swarthy. And she put on white lead makeup. And she put on a lot of it from the other accounts that I've read. I study this stuff. Because people don't think it matters, but it does. So I came across this article. And it was actually posted June 3rd, which I think is yesterday. Today is June 4th, yeah. And it says, while the controversy over a black actress playing Anne Boleyn is unnecessary and harmful. So if you don't know who Anne Boleyn is, she is the mother of Queen Elizabeth. And there's a controversy because this actor, Jodie Turner-Smith, is playing her in this miniseries, and people are outraged. When British broadcaster Channel 5 announced the cast of its Anne Boleyn miniseries last October, the show's eponymous star, black actress Jodie Turner-Smith, faced immediate backlash from critics who objected to a woman of color portraying the white Tudor queen. Now, was Queen Elizabeth's mother white? That's a possibility. But if her mother was white, then it means her daddy was black. If her daddy was white, that meant her mother was black. But they wouldn't make that argument. They would say, "Oh no. She was swarthy. She was ruddy, and she wasn't even that. She was white." But both of her parents were. They would say both of her parents were white. And then they would bring up some bogus story about white people birthing a black child, not actually looking into the story of that. That's what they would do. And they will reject the rest of the information, rest of the data, rest of the scientific information, all that. They will reject that. Hey, we know that two black people can birth a white baby. And we have evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence of that. We know that black people can birth twins, and one of them be black and one of them be white. And we have evidence after evidence after evidence of that. The racist overtones of this outcry weren't lost on Turner Smith, who tells Glamour's Abigail Blackburn that she knew it would be something that people felt very passionately about because they've been brainwashed. Because if you dare say that the royal lineage is black, oh my God, all hell has broken loose. But then when these scholars and everything, they get up here and they say it, then, you know, well, you know, you know, yeah. Well, I guess. Then it goes on and says, either in a positive or negative way, because Anne is a human in history who people feel very strongly about. As the actress adds, she responded to the criticism by focusing on the story. She and the series creators wanted to tell a human story of Anne as a mother. Now, what you're going to find out is they didn't got nothing to really. It just to cause controversy, because the people who are the creators of it, out their own mouth, they're going to say, "Oh, she's not black, she's white, but we going to play her as a black woman." So they're playing with people's minds. This is all psychological warfare. This is what Satan is doing because it's more effective. When you can mess with a person's mind and get them so enslaved in their mind, and then they go forth and they teach other people and enslave them, that's brilliant. Round of applause to them. That's brilliant. As we say, that's genius in comparison to slaughtering people. And the people say, hey, hold on now, people getting killed. They ain't just getting killed for no reason. And that was one of Satan's greatest tactics. When he stopped persecuting the Christians in the abundance that he was persecuting them in, how he was killing us off and stuff like that, and he more so started to infiltrate the way he has done and set these false religions up in the form of Christianity and whatnot. That was genius. Because look where we're at today. From a military standpoint, it was a genius move. Because he did more damage doing it that way than killing us. So, goes on and says, the 3-part production, which premiered earlier this week, revisits the final days of Anne's life from her own perspective, framing the intrigues of Tudor court as a psychological thriller. You see, they're dealing with the psychology of people. They know what they're doing. Oh man, they got the woman. Her mother's black, but then they got other people. Like it's messing with their minds. A thriller. They know what they're doing. Rather than an historically accurate period drama, not realizing that they're really mocking you because her mother was black. I don't know if her mama was that black, but her mama was black. And her daddy was black, as I'm going to show you from the records. Because the records say that she took more after her father. So if she is described as swarthy and ruddy, and we know what swarthy and ruddy means, and tawny, and she took more after her father than her mother, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? So goes on and says, in addition to Turner Smith, the show features black actors who plays Anne's brother and, I don't know how to pronounce it, but you see it as the queen's cousin. See, they're playing with people's minds. They say, oh no, this isn't historically accurate, but they know it's accurate. So the people, they get outraged about it, they watch it because they're intrigued by it, because it's messing with their psychological, not realizing they're watching actual truth. Because they are being presented as historically accurate. So, I think they also, I haven't seen the show, but I guarantee in other places they put white actors. I wouldn't be surprised if they made Anne Boleyn's husband white. So, I'm going to go down here. Well, they say that they go right here. Yeah. Instead of practicing colorblind casting, the show's creators adopted an identity-conscious approach to choosing its stars, reports Flora Carr. Mark Stanley, a white actor who portrays Anne's husband, the Mercurial Henry, and yeah, there you go right there. So it's causing confusion. It's causing confusion. That's what I want you to see. So I want to go down here, and they tell you, it says the real Anne Boleyn wasn't black. Now I don't know if this is according to the person that wrote this article or the people that did the show, but either way, this is a lie. So if Anne Boleyn wasn't black, then why would you cast her as black? Why would you want to cause confusion either way? Because that's how they get down. Remember, they said they were writing a psychological thriller. Psyche, that's dealing with the spirits. A spiritual thriller. Something that's going to thrill your spirit. And for most people, it's going to cause confusion. Matter of fact, let's jump over here. I want to see something. What does the word thrill actually mean? What is thrill? Let's go to thriller. What does it actually mean? Sensational story. From thrill, obviously. To pierce. Psychological piercing. Y'all know y'all know how with me and words and breaking words down and getting the wisdom. Because now that gives you a better understanding of what they're doing, right? You say, I ain't got to lie to you. No reason to lie to you. But they ain't going to tell you all this. So a psychological thriller, a sensational story, is we know psychological deal with the spirit, a spiritual piercing. They are penetrating your spirit. Why would they want to penetrate and pierce your spirit? Unless they're trying to plant something and put something there. Or cause something to pour out so they can fill it back up with something else. They're putting a hole in you. Give a shivering, exciting feeling. Crossover, pass through, overcome. What are they trying to overcome in your spirit? What are they trying to pass through in your spirit? Think about that. What are they doing when they're telling this story and causing confusion in the spirit? By penetrating you, by piercing you, so they can pass through and get in there. Because they know that if they didn't do it that way, then you wouldn't receive it. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. I hope you're enjoying this so far. I hope you're enjoying it in a good way. This is a real thriller right here. This is a real life thriller. So we go over here, and this is a page I found. Anne Boleyn's, probably pronouncing it wrong, but I apologize if I am. Appearance and demeanor. So this person, just being honest, they're biased toward Anne Boleyn. They're super biased, not biased in a righteous way, because they're gonna show some things that were said about her, and they're gonna say, oh, what? It couldn't have been that, So I'm just being fair. The debate about what Anne Boleyn actually looked like has raged for many years. So this ain't nothing new. Remember, this is her mother. And I think will continue to do so, as no contemporary portrait of Anne survived. So Queen Elizabeth took after her mother in that aspect. The other issues that many of the contemporary descriptions of Anne were written during her relationship to the king, and so, as Eric Ives says, are already colored by the controversy surrounding her relationship with the king, because it was a big old controversy. They call her nickname, depending on who you read, they call her the Great Whore. Because a lot of people see her as a homewrecker. Because the king didn't want to be with his current wife. It's a big old story. I'm not going to get into that. Some of you know that. But ain't nothing different from what the Hebrews went through and what our people did back in the day. I wonder why. So, hostile observers skewed their descriptions to serve a political purpose. Antonia Frazier calls it venomous propaganda. Now, I believe that there was obviously some venomous propaganda that was there. That's nothing new. It goes on a day. It was going on back then. But do I believe that all of it was venomous propaganda and none of it was true? I don't believe that. Because a person can still spew venomous propaganda for political purposes and it still be true if they know what they're doing. So this person says, I have collected the following quotes about Anne's appearance, qualities, and demeanor from Eric Ives, The Life and Death of Anne Boleyn, from his book. And it says, I'm including this first description not because I feel it is in any way a reflection of what Anne actually looked like, but because it's useful to see how Anne was willfully misinterpreted by some because of their dislike of her controversial relationship with the king. It also shows how these extreme views of Anne's appearance became part of popular culture and were actually taken serious by some writers, because that's how things go. The most extreme of these descriptions was made by Nicholas Sander, an Elizabethan recusant activist. According to his account, this is what he says about her. Anne Boleyn was rather tall of stature, with black hair and an oval face of sallow complexion, as if troubled with jaundice. She had a projecting tooth under the upper lip, and on her right hand 6 fingers. There was a large win under her chin. Guess it's like a big old mole or wart. And therefore, to hide its ugliness, she wore a high dress covering her throat. In this, she was followed by the ladies of the court. So the ladies, they did the same thing too. They covered their neck. Who also wore high dresses, having before been in the habit of leaving their necks and upper portion of their persons uncovered. We see the same thing with Queen Elizabeth, that she was showing her, we would say, cleavage, her upper area, and then the other women followed suit. She was handsome to look at with a pretty mouth. So, hey, she was tall. Her teeth was messed up, and she had we're gonna look at sallow complexion, but hey, she wasn't the best looking, but she wasn't ugly though. So this person responds with, now apart from the fact that he contradicts himself in the description, how could anyone have possibly believed that Anne Boleyn actually looked like the monster described by Sanders? I mean, he didn't really describe her as a monster. Not how I see it. I see it as him describing somebody that's maybe older, but that still looks good. I've seen older women. You could tell, hey, they used to be bad back in the day, but they teeth is messed up, and they don't walk as gracefully as they used to. And they got more body warts and stuff like that. I've seen that, so that's why this person is super biased and not in a good way. How could she have attracted the suitors she did in her lifetime, including the King of England, if she had a protruding tooth, 6 finger, and a large win? I think that's a wart. So I mean, is that what the king liked? That's what the king liked. But I don't believe that she looked like that when the king was attracted to her. I believe this may have been a later description of her, in comparison to how she would have looked when she was younger. But like I said, I'm just being fair in my judgment, because this person is obviously super biased and not in a righteous way. Tell me she looked like a monster. I don't see that. I see that as a older woman that got more than a few blemishes, but still looks good. So George Wyatt, writing at the end of the 16th century to contradict the monstrous description of Anne, written by Nicholas Sander, claims that there was found indeed upon the side of her nail, upon one of her fingers some little show of a nail, which was yet so small by the report of those that have seen her, as the workmaster seemed to leave it an occasion of greater grace to her hand. So there was something on her hand. It was probably a wart. But Nicholas Sanders, he said, hey, she got a whole other finger. So you could say it's a little bit of slander or whatever, political, political purpose. Like, man, she got a whole other finger on her hand. And old buddy right here, he's like, man, stop it, man. It's a wart. It ain't that serious. It's noticeable, but it ain't no whole finger growing out of her hand when she got 6 fingers. So like I said, I'm just being fair in my judgment. But I know how it goes. A person will take a story and they will run with it. Man, I've seen it, man. She got 6 fingers. For real? Yeah, man. She got 6 fingers. I'm telling you, man. I seen it. It was like it was growing right there in front of me. It was talking to me and everything. I was, you know what I'm saying? She looked pretty good, but man, I was distracted by the 6 finger talking to me. You know, I'm just saying. And, people will believe stuff like that. So he's saying that nah, bruh, nah. It was a wart, pretty much. It was a wart on the side of her hand. So it goes on and says, as the workmaster seemed to leave it an occasion of greater grace to her hand. So it was like, hey, I just see it as a part of the grace of her hand. Just leave her alone. This is the queen, which with the tip of one of her other fingers might be, and was usually by her hidden without any blemish to it. Likewise, there was said to be upon some parts of her body certain small moles incident to the clearest complexion. So obviously, she has some skin issues. But he was like, man, she had this big mole, big wart under her chin, and she gotta hide it. It's so big, she hides it, which is true. She was hiding it. So he just took the story, he blew it up a little bit more. I don't know how big it was. It could have been big. It could have been not that big, but it must have been big enough where she wanted to hide it. So, and obviously there was a protrusion from her hand that could be mistaken as a 6 finger. So, let's continue on. So perhaps a minor malformation is possible, or maybe 1 or 2 moles or beauty spots, but not the 6 finger and large wart described by Sanders, which is exactly what I just said. The French poet Lancelot Descartes called her beautiful and with an elegant figure. People say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't necessarily believe that, because an ugly person is an ugly person. When God made, think about this. When God made everything, did he make it ugly or beautiful? He made it beautiful. So obviously, if God made everything beautiful and he made us in his image, then we would know if something is beautiful or if something is ugly. You see, y'all go with what y'all been taught, because you got to go along to get along. You can't, you dare say somebody is ugly. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's bull jive. That's bull jive. An ugly woman is an ugly woman. A busted dude is a busted dude. It's simple. Don't act like you don't know what beauty is. Don't act like you don't know when something is ugly. If I get on camera, I make an ugly face, you know that's an ugly face. You ain't going to sit here and say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's a beautiful face he's making. Man, stop it. That's that go along and get along mentality that you've been taught according to the world. Don't say nothing about nobody. We all God's children, all that garbage. So, we know that she was a pretty good looking woman, because there's too many historical accounts saying that she was good looking. Obviously, most people don't look the same when they get older in their 60s or 70s as they do when they are younger. I don't look as, I'm more, men, we preserve our beauty, our beauty, our handsomeness, however you want to put it, longer, as we get older in comparison to women. I ain't saying that it ain't no, come on now, I shouldn't have to go there. I know, what you trying to say about the women? I'm saying overall, we know that a woman's beauty runs out eventually, and men, we can be 50 years old and, be, some men are 50 years old and they look better than they in their 50s than they do when they was younger. And some men, when in their younger days they was dashing, and they got older, they don't look as good, but they still can pull the women. And some men looked good back then, and they look good in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, or whatever, and still can pull the ladies or whatever. You know, and still have that charm and everything. So, again, he said that she was beautiful and with an elegant figure. I believe, because of what I've researched and everything, that she was a very beautiful woman. He also said that she became so graceful that you would never have taken her for an English woman, but for a French woman born. Brantôme remembered Anne Boleyn in his later years as the fairest and most bewitching of all the lovely dames of the French court. This is in her later years. I mean, she was still good looking, and he did say that. You know, this is obviously in her later years, that she was handsome to look at with a pretty mouth. According to Lancelot Charles, her most attractive feature was her eyes, which she well knew how to use. And the Bible actually warns us about that, right? In truth, such was their power that many a man paid his allegiance. So this is consistent with what we see, what we read, what we study, that the women during that time period were very vain, just like they're very vain today. I wonder why. I wonder why the Israelite women of today are very vain. Because your ancestors like Anne Boleyn were very vain. Your ancestors like Queen Elizabeth I were very vain. And the Bible speaks about the women being very vain in the last days and what God was going to do. That's just crazy how you see that she used her eyes as power to get men to give allegiance. Because the Bible speaks directly about that, which is why God messed up their beauty. Not only her, but her daughter. She used her eyes, he tells us, to invite conversation and to convey the promise of hidden passion. I done met many women like that. A Venetian reporting what was known of her in Paris in 1528 described her as very beautiful. John Barlow, one of Anne's favorite clerics, said she was very eloquent and gracious and reasonably good looking. The Venetian diplomat, this is a different one, described Anne as, it's describing the mother. But before we seen how a Venetian diplomat, or I think it was a ambassador, kind of like you can say the same thing, he was describing the daughter, Queen Elizabeth. Not one of the handsomest women in the world, so we know that historically, back in the day, handsome was a word to describe women. So don't get confused about that. Use some discernment. She is of middling stature, which is, you know, what I said. I believe that she was middle stature. So if you looked at her, depending on who was looking at her, she would seem to be tall or seem to be short. Swarthy complexion, another witness. Long neck, wide mouth. So she had big lips. A bosom not much raised, and eyes which are black and beautiful. You know, the eyes aren't black, but she had deep, dark eyes. And we know if it's saying they got black eyes, they are brown. So eyes pretty much to get lost and they draw you in or whatnot. So she didn't have too much of I would say, too much, you know what I'm saying, cup size from what he's saying. So this guy, Simon Griney, described her complexion as what? Rather dark. So all these witnesses. But people will get mad at you for me bringing this up. So you tell me I can't bring this up. I can't compare two different pieces of evidence. One telling me that she was white and that this royal lineage was white, and the other one telling me that she's black and the royal lineage is black. I'm not allowed to compare the two. I must believe that that this lineage was white. Well, I must believe that they are black. I can't compare the two because we've been taught that they were white. So the only thing I have left to compare is, hey, let me see if they're black because I'm reading stuff that says that they were probably black. I'm not allowed to do that though. We aren't allowed to do that. Now, if I just came on and said, hey, they're black, that's it, end of story. If you don't believe it's the hell with you, then that would be unrighteous also. But I'm comparing the two. Thomas Wyatt gave her the poetic name Brunette. You see, I told you I ain't gonna make nothing up. No reason to. Ives also points out that when Elizabeth was born, it was remarked how fair she was. So Elizabeth was a very, very beautiful baby. And that she'd obviously taken after her father, not her mother. So Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, who Anne is her mother and Henry is her father, King Henry. I forgot what I'm not good with the numerals and stuff like that. But she took after her father. And Elizabeth's skin complexion is described as swarthy, ruddy, just like that of her mother, but she took after her father. So was her father white and her mother black? Was her mother white and her father black? We know her mother was not white. We know Elizabeth was not white. And we know that Henry was not white. Because we have looked at that historical information, historical records also. So Elizabeth, she took more after her father. So the evidence is supporting that not only was Elizabeth black, not only was her mother black, but also her father was black. Now, like I said, I'm getting ahead of myself because I already know. I've already researched it. We did a 10-hour video breaking it down. We did a 10-hour video. The longest sermon I've ever done. But I had to do it because that's what the Spirit was leading me to do. And now all that stuff is coming back to play. Some of you are like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, because you didn't take the lesson. You didn't watch the lesson. A servant of Wolsey's recalled how Anne stood out among the women at court for her excellent grace and behavior. So it goes more and more. Talks about her. She was obviously more beautiful than most of the women there. It pretty much said there was not too many women that could touch her in regards to looks. And she was queen too, so. She was the model and the mirror of those who were at court, for she was always well dressed and every day made some change in the fashion of her garments, which the other women followed. So it just goes on talking about her fashion and stuff like that. Talks about her hair. They had hair so long that they could sit on it. After examining all the available portraits of Anne, I concluded that she had a face long and oval with high cheekbones. We've seen those type of black women. She could sing and she could dance. She was an accomplished musician. She spoke and wrote in French and also spoke Latin, although to what extent is debatable. Therefore, we can gather from the evidence that Anne was slim, of dark complexion, a black woman. Oh, Lord. With a long oval face and high cheekbones. She had long, dark hair and beautiful, expressive, dark, almost black eyes. Now, you can debate how dark her hair was, but we know that it was on the side of brunette. It wasn't like black. So, yeah, I think we got our point from that. They give you the books if you want to reference them. These people, this is what they do. But just because they say it don't mean it's true. We have to look at all the evidence. Ultimately, the scriptures are our final authority, and we will get to that later. So let's go to our next point. I want to look at this word sallow because one of the dudes described her as sallow. It says of a person's face or complexion of an unhealthy yellow or pale brown color. His skin was sallow and pitted, which she had pitted skin because she used to wear the makeup too, just like her daughter ended up doing. And then she got older, so her skin did not look as healthy. Wearing all that makeup, eating all that sugar, that put a wear and tear on her body, put a wear and tear on her health and stuff like that. So obviously her skin and her appearance was not going to be vibrant and as lively as it used to be. So again, sallow of an unhealthy yellow or what? Pale brown color. Sallow, dusky, dark, dirty, discolored, dirty. Right? So she did not look very healthy. But you see what color it's in relation to. You see what color it's in relation to. Right? So, I'm going to go over here, and it says, what did Elizabeth I think of her mother, Anne Boleyn? Historian Tracy Borman explains. I just want to show you that Anne Boleyn is the mother of Elizabeth I. And then from that, we allegedly get the modern day Queen Elizabeth II and that royal family. Right. The Elizabeth I and her mother Anne Boleyn, however you pronounce it, have much of a relationship. Anne was executed when Elizabeth was just a young girl, but that didn't mean Elizabeth just forgot about her mother. So what did she think about her mother? Henry V. Second's wife. Historian Tracy Borman explained, was that 5, 6, was that 8? Henry VIII? So they say this is what they look like. Stop it. So on May 19th, 1536, Queen Anne Boleyn, second wife of King Henry, was executed by beheading within the confines of the Tower of London. She had been queen for just 3 years. Anne and Henry's daughter, Elizabeth, who became Queen Elizabeth I in 1558, was just a small child at the time of her mother's death. So how did Elizabeth I view Anne as she grew up? The popular misconception is that Elizabeth didn't really regard her mother at all. She only mentioned twice in her life. In fact, Elizabeth mentioned her a good deal more than that. But you can see why Elizabeth didn't make a song and dance about her mother. She would have been upsetting swathes of the population by aligning herself to a woman who gone down as a scandal, as the quote, the great whore, as she was known. So Elizabeth had to be careful not to associate too closely with her mother. Elizabeth expressed her loyalty in subtle ways. She promoted her Boleyn relatives at court, and she wore Anne's jewelry, and also in other ways. For example, she had a locket ring that contained 2 portraits, one of Elizabeth and the other of Anne. So, just a little short article. I'm pretty sure she also, expressed her mother in other ways in regards to some of the things she did in dressing and stuff like that. So, we go over here and we look at the word brunette, because remember, she was described in a poem as a brunette. When you look up brunette today, you don't think about black women. Most people don't. But you could say that she was the original brunette of her day. What is a brunette? A person, typically a woman with dark brown hair. So go over and look at images and let's see what they give us. Huh. Let's type it in the way it's spelled today. Let's see what it gives us. Okay, got a few. One, two, two black women. That would have been more on the lines of Anne Boylan right there. The long face, high cheekbones. Is funny. The picture came up. High cheekbones. I can see if she gets older and she's not taking care of herself, her skin will look sallow, pale. This is brunette right here. This is brunette. It's a dark brown. That red color. They say that she is a brunette. I don't know if she's a natural brunette or not. Y'all know who this is, right? Just show you some examples. So obviously, we see what's going on. Let me go back. Let me type in Khalees. Because Khalees was the one I used to more so describe Queen Elizabeth in the original video that I did, the 10-hour sermon. I'm trying to find the picture that I used. It was kind of like this, because Queen Elizabeth's hair was more red. I don't see the original image that I used. Let me see. Khalees, brown hair. I don't see the image I originally used, but you get the point. You get the point. When I did the 10-hour sermon, there was an image on the what you call it, a little, I don't know, I can't remember what's called right now, but a little picture on the video, and I showed Khalees next to another woman, and then we compared the two to find out which one most likely fits the description that is given. So we go over here to our next point. Swarthy, because both of them are referenced as swarthy and ruddy, right? So swarthy means what? Dark colored. So her mother was dark colored. She had darker hair, and Queen Elizabeth, she was dark colored. She was black, but her hair was lighter. It's from swart. Let me go back because it said something specifically. Dark color, especially of skin. So majority of the time when you're talking about swarthy, majority of the time you're dealing with skin complexion. Black, dark, of night, clouds. It also can be used as something that's wicked, infamous, dark colored, black. Could be dirty, dark black. You see it. Pretty straightforward, right? We go over here to Webster's 28. It brings some more witnesses. Swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion. Tawny. In warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. The Moors, Spaniards, and Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. We know the Germans. We know that they was all black. They were just different shades. Their swarthy hosts would darken all our plains. Swarthy, they have black. So we talk about black people, we talk about swarthy people, dark colored people. As a swarthy African. So you tell me that they didn't know what swarthy meant. So she wasn't the darkest, but she wasn't the lightest. She definitely wasn't what we call white. Tawny, tan colored. Of or like the brownish yellow of tanned leather. Dark brown. Dark brown. Yeah, this word rufus, literally what? Red haired. From Latin rufus, red. Tawny, red-haired. So we talking about somebody. They talking about historically red-haired. They got tawny hair. They got dark brown hair. My son has my youngest son has dark brown hair, tawny hair. You can really see his. It looks black. There's still undertones of black in it, but it's more dark brown than it is like that deep dark black color. And so you see how this ties into the sermon we did yesterday, talking about Esau. We know that Esau and Jacob were twins. How you pronounce it? Reddish brown. Reddish, tawny, red-haired. It said from the Latin red, and the root of it is what? Ruddy. Ruddy. Oh, Lord. We ain't got to make nothing up. We have fallow, which is he said sallow, right? Pale yellow, brownish yellow, reddish brown, tawny, dust colored. We look at tan. To convert hide into leather by steeping it in tannin. We're going to look at that a little bit later. Tan, dye a tawny color. Right? The meaning make brown by exposure to the sun, as tanning does to hides, first recorded in the 1520s. But people say, I'm tanning. Since I'm bronzing, I'm becoming darker. When they get in the sun, they get a tan. They're making they're tanning their hide into leather. Because darker you get, then the tougher the skin is. Which is why they did a lot of experiments on the women and the men and stuff like that. So, just showing you, the skin becomes more tough because of the nutrients it absorbs and brings forth when it absorbs the vitamin D3 from the sun in combination with the food that you are eating. That's what I want to make sure I explain it a little bit better. So we go over here, tawny, of a yellowish dark color, like things tan, or persons who are sunburnt. And you talking about somebody ain't gotten the sun and they got their skin peeling or whatever. That ain't what they're talking about. That doesn't even make sense. Because when we know that when most white people get in the sun, their skin doesn't bronze unless they put the sun lotion on. It peels and it turns red. It doesn't bronze like that. But a person would take this and say, see, sunburnt. As a tawny what? More. We see consistency. Or Spaniard. The tawny sons of Numidia. The tawny lion. Why y'all letting these folks lie to you? We go type in tawny complexion. What is tawny complexion? Tawny is a light brown or brownish orange color. What is tawny skin color? Tawny is a brownish yellowish tan color. Human skin color can range from almost black to nearly colorless, appearing pinkish white due to the blood in the skin in different people. Skin color is determined by the amount and type of melanin, which is why they study chemistry. Chemistry is the study of melanin, the study of carbon, the study of the 666, the study of the flesh. And you cannot study the flesh to exalt the flesh without studying the original people. And the original people are black, who gave birth to every shade of every other color person. The original people, going back to Adam and Eve, the ruddy people. Not the super black people, but the ruddy people that can bring forth the rest of the people. But they're not going to tell you that, though. They say, oh, the black, they bring forth everything. Well, was Adam the black is, black like that? Super dark black? No, the Bible doesn't say. He said he was ruddy. It says he was ruddy. Then he goes on and says the pigment in the skin. So what is the skin? The skin is the largest organ of the body. The skin is what we call the flesh. Isn't the skin prominent what we consider the flesh? So what are they ultimately studying? They're studying the flesh, manipulating the flesh to become gods without God. They know this. They know this. What is the meaning of tawny? A brownish orange to light brown color. What is another word for tawny? Uh-oh. Blonde? What? See, I told you. They're playing psychological warfare games with your mind. Because when most people think of blonde, they do not think of black people. They do not think of tawny, which is dusky, which is brown. They don't. I'm sorry, but they don't. And you know that. Which shows you and proves even more that these people are playing and doing psychological warfare on people. Bronze. Also what we see in the Bible in regards to polished brass, polished bronze. Brown. Dusky. Fulvos. Never pronounced that word in my life. Olive. What? Oh, Jesus had olive colored skin. Jesus was black. Y'all proving the point, trying to run from the truth. Swarthy. Tanned. Yellow. So if Jesus was olive colored, Jesus was black. Oh, Lord. Tawny again is a light brown to brownish orange color. There goes a tawny owl. The word means tan colored, associated with the brownish yellow of tanned leather. They take the crushed, back in the day they take the crushed oak bark, they crush it up and they use it to make stuff darker. Oak tree. Which is why they worship the oak tree. Y'all think it's about a tree. It's not about the tree. Just like they had the Black Madonna. Come on now. They don't see what's going on. They know what's up. So this is the electronic definitions of tawny. So they tell you tawny olive, right? All the different shades of tawny they have. So in the online color thesaurus, it says gives tawny as CC7F3B, noting it is rarely used according to them. And they include what? Light chocolate, caramel, light brown, and camel. Makes sense to me. Then the dictionary of color, the tawny birch, the list of lion tawny, and orange tawny. Then in theirs, they have these different colors. And just go on and on, you know, they're showing you. The proprietary Pantone TC color system includes tawny olive. We're going to come back to that because that's very, very interesting. Tawny birch, tawny brown, tawny orange, and tawny pork. It also has several shades of tan. Apricot tan, copper tan, rose tan, pastel rose tan, and Indian tan. Also includes the burnt orange included in there, and that other color, right? So different shades of this color, and you know this is just different shades of it, right? So we go to our next point, and we look at tan leather. Tan leather, simple, tan leather from the tannins. They tan the leather, making it darker with the tannins. Oh, what color is it? Huh? What color? Kind of like the same thing we were just reading. Different shades of black, depending on what type of undertones you have. Because there's nobody literally walking around like midnight black. Now, there are people you can look at and you say, "Oh man, they're midnight black," but it's not literally midnight black. It just appears that way because of how much light is being absorbed in comparison to how much is being reflected. It's like there's literally nobody walking around white like this page. But we say white people, just like we say black people. Why is all this important? I mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. So brown is a composite color. In printing, in the color model, in printing or painting, brown is made by combining red, black, and yellow, or red, yellow, and blue. Again, why is all this important? The brown color is seen widely in nature, wood, soil, human hair color, eye color, and skin pigmentation. Brown is the color of dark wood or rich soil. What did God form Adam from? From the dust, the clay, and we talked about yesterday, of Africa, which has rich soil because of the iron content. Oh my God. But why is this important even more? According to public opinion surveys in Europe and the United States, where Europe and the United States, two of the most racist places on the earth, brown is the least favorite color of the public. It is often associated with plainness, the rustic feces, and poverty. More positive associations include baking, warmth, wildlife, and the autumn. So, in the context of what we're speaking about, if on a psychological level, we're going to say that most people, even people that are darker than me in India, who are blacker than me, they would see me and they would hate me because they would see me as a black man. They would see me as a nigga. Even though some of them over there, their skin is as dark as mine or darker than mine. But like I told you, what we call as a black person in regards to describing Hebrews isn't just exclusive to black skin, but also includes things like skull structure and stuff like that. Because you can find a person that's blacker than me, and you will find out that just because they're blacker than me doesn't necessarily mean that they're Hebrew. So when we're talking about skin color, and you see that Europe and United States has this view about brown being the least favorite color because they're associated with plainness, the rustic feces, and poverty, how do you think they view black people? How do you think they view black people? That means on a psychological level, how do they view, quote unquote, black people? They view us as plain. They view us in the same category as feces. They view us as a poor people. No matter how much money you get, they still view you as poor in comparison to them. Now you may say, well, I don't know about all that, but the word tells us you will know a tree by its fruit. And we see the fruit of how one group of people in particular treat another group of people because of their skin color, their brown skin color. And the powers that be that are manipulating these people, both sides, they know this. They know this. They know this stuff. They're doing these studies for a reason. Not only so they can make money, but the more money you have, then the more you can oppress a people. because you have power to write literature how you want to. You have power to control the flow of information. Like with the internet, we only have access to, what is it, 5% of the actual internet, and the data that's out there, the knowledge that's out there. Excuse me. So just imagine what else is out there. But most people can't even handle what's going on right now. Let alone, you know what I'm saying, whatever else is out there. But it's coming. It's going to be to most people's demise. Negroes want to know about aliens and stuff like that. Aliens exist in everything, and they can't even deal with their neighbor. You want to go make peace with aliens, but you can't even make peace on this world. How stupid are we? So, remember this word right here? Pantone. Pantone 448C, also referred to as the ugliest color in the world. Ooh, that's serious. Is a color in the Pantone color system, described as what? A drab, dark brown. It was selected in 2012 as a color for plain tobacco and cigarette packaging in Australia after market researchers determined that it was the least attractive color, because they were trying to make people stop smoking. Hey, to make people stop smoking, we'll put the ugliest color in the world, which should reduce the amount of cigarettes that are sold. Are you seeing what's going on? The Australian Department of Health initially referred to the color as what? Olive green. Jesus was olive colored. He wasn't black. Because they gonna say he anything except black. He can be olive, he could be cream, he could be whatever, as long as he ain't no black man. They don't want to admit that. They don't want to accept that. Even though we see that olive green is dark brown, because ain't nobody walking around olive. It's a dark brown color with obviously green undertones that are showing more. You got green undertones, red undertones, yellow undertones. You know, you got gold undertones in people's skin. Dark grayish olive. I'm going to prove it to you even more just in case you don't believe it. So let me close some of these tabs out. Olive skin. We've covered this before, haven't we? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we've covered this. Olive skin is a human skin color spectrum. What they say? I don't care if they white, yellow, red, blue, green, purple. Man, stop it. That's bull job. That's that all inclusive stuff. Ain't nobody walking around purple. Like we have terms that we describe in regard to somebody purple because they're so black. But nobody's literally walking around like the color purple. Nobody's literally walking around like a alien gray, because it's not normal. You would say something like, hey, something wrong with them. Even when somebody loses their color in their skin, rather black or white, say, hey man, you don't look too good. But y'all out here looking for the alien green, the green alien, the gray aliens. I think I said green, gray, whatever, y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all looking for these pale gray aliens. If I said, hey man, you looking kind of sick. You looking kind of sick there. What's wrong with you? But hey, this is what people want to go after. These fallen angels, these false gods. They're not gods anymore. Olive skin is a human skin color spectrum. It is often associated with the pigmentation in the type 3 to the type 4 and type 5 ranges of the Fitzpatrick scale. So it's just not what they say is this. We have discussed this. We have discussed this. Oh, Jesus was olive skin. But they tell you about this color. What about this one and this one? What about these two? And we looked at this scale. Matter of fact, let's go over and let's get it real fast so we can look at it, just so you can get a better representation. Now they say this is type 3. That's what they say. They say this is type 3 right here. So you got type 1, type 2. Let's go back. Type 1, type 2, got type 3, 4, and 5. So 3, 4, and 5, according to what they're saying, fall into the category of olive skin. So we go over here, 3, we're gonna roll with it. 3, 4, and 5. Now they got the image of the Asian woman. Like, come on now. Like I said, I don't. So I can find a 3, 4, 5. We'll keep these up. We'll keep these up for the time being. Because most Asians are not this dark. They're doing it to throw you off. You're Asian is this type, and this y'all right here. Most Asians are not this dark. Unless we say Blackanese. We know that most Asians aren't this dark. We know that most Japanese aren't this dark. We know the history of the Asians and the Japanese and everything. But see, that's a psychological games they're playing. Then you see what they do. Oh, see, we're gonna put the white woman, type 1, with the light hair, the brunette hair. But we just saw historically Queen Elizabeth and her mother, they were up in here. Don't mind the Asian features. They were up in here with this type of hair. They're playing mind games. But just to roll what they're saying. They're saying type 3, type 4, and type 5 is olive skin. So we can conclude that we can say it's a possibility for Jesus to be black. If you're saying that Jesus is olive skin, you say, well, I know he ain't white. He's olive skin color. It's a possibility for him to be black. Because, go back, olive skin is a human skin color spectrum that falls in the type 2, type 3, type 3, type 4, and type 5. Type 5 would be what people would say today as a typical black person. And I would even go this far too. Because you got stuff in between. We know that. But just for argument's sake and to keep it simple. So again, it's a possibility according to the very people that make the makeup, because they're using this scale for makeup and all type of beauty and everything. Stop using the beauty stuff then. Stop using the makeup. Stop, going to people and matching your makeup up with your skin color that are using this data. Stop using all that stuff. Stop everything. Oh, but you're not going to do that. According to the information that y'all use, we can say that it's a possibility for Jesus to at least be black. And then we can give more evidence and scriptural stuff and however you want it to support that he is black. So to say that it's not possible is a straight up lie and a deception. Then you must ask yourself why they don't want to deal with the evidence. Why don't they want to deal with the truth? Why it ain't possible. To hell no. I ain't bow down to no nigga. Because I heard people say that. Pastors or so-called pastors say that. I will never accept the black Messiah. Oh, they will at the end of the day. It don't matter. It don't matter. According to who? According to you? Everything else matters in regards to color, but now it just don't matter. Oh, you have such a lovely black wife, but your wife is white. No, man, my wife is white. No, she's black. She's white. She's black. She looks just as black as me, but she's nowhere near as black as me. It doesn't matter though. Don't question me about me calling your wife black, even though your wife is what we call white. Don't question me on that because it doesn't matter. You see the stupidity of an argument like that? But yet people roll with that. So again, going back to it, we see it's a possibility. At least a possibility. Now, we know the truth. It generally refers to light or moderate, what? Tan skin. Dark skin. Brown skin. Is often described as having yellow, green, or golden undertones. People with olive skin, and these are olive skinned people. So you're talking about olive skinned people, you're talking about black people too. Not just the ones that you choose. People with olive skin can sometimes become more pale if their sun exposure is limited. Didn't I mention that yesterday? Like, unless you just black, and a person can't tell. Most of us, when it gets cold, we lighten up. But when it gets hot and the sun comes out more, we bronze, we darken. Our skin looks more lively, more ruddy. Oh, they don't want it. They don't want it. That's why they don't want these videos to get out. Lighter olive skin still tans more easily than light skin does, and generally still retains notable yellow or greenish undertones. So, my wife is light skinned, we call it light skin, but she is a lighter olive skin. She's not light skin in the sense of how they define light skin. This is how they define light skin. So type 3, pigmentation, is frequent among populations from the Mediterranean. We know what the Mediterranean is, i.e. Southern Europe. Oh my God, Southern Europe? Is that like Spain and those different places? I think it is. Greece, where the Hebrews were? Western Asia? And what? Northern Africa, aka the Middle East. Because the Middle East is a political term that they made up. We did summers on that. Go look it up. They tell you when they made a term up. It was a political term for a political reason. It had nothing to do with nothing that you think it has something to do with. The Middle East is Northern Africa, as well as some parts of Latin America. It ranges from cream to darker olive skin tones. Cream, let's see. I don't know about all that, but hey, that's what they say. This skin type sometimes mildly burns and tans gradually, but always tans, according to what they're saying. But we ain't studying everything they're talking about. But it depends on how light or dark a person is, because you can have a light skinned black person. My wife, one time she was in the sun and she got sunburned. It was the first time she ever got sunburned in her life. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I got sunburned." There are different factors that factor into that. I can't address every single point. I can address overall and then give different points within that, but I can't sit here every single point. You got to discern it for yourself. So type 4 pigmentation is frequent among some populations from the Mediterranean, as well as parts of Asia, Latin America. It ranges from brownish or darker olive to moderate brown, typical Mediterranean skin tones. So typical Mediterranean skin tones are what? Darker olive to moderate brown. Then you got the type, was that 3, 5? Yeah, 5. Pigmentation is frequent among populations from the Middle East. But you see they try to confuse you? Northern Africa and Middle East, it's the same place. Same place. Parts of the Mediterranean, Sicily, type 5, right? This right here. Parts of Africa, right. Latin America and the Indian subcontinent. It ranges from olive to tan. Middle Eastern skin tones. So the Middle Eastern skin tones is type 5. Did I close it out? Type 5? That what y'all telling us? But then y'all say the North African is type 3? This? And you're saying that, hey, these aren't black people? This type very rarely burns and tans quite easily. You see how they're trying to cause confusion? Oh no, black people don't fit in here. Black people wouldn't fit in type 3. Even though they just said Northern Africa. And it goes up to darker olive skin tones. Depending on how dark it is, depends on the undertones, right? How much melanin and everything. But, hey, type 3 is Northern Africa. But this ain't black. Or maybe it's black. And type 5 is Middle East. But this ain't black. Because the Middle East is not Northern Africa according to them. But it says parts of Mediterranean. And it says it ranges from olive to tan. And it is the Middle Eastern skin tone. And this is the darkest before you get to the darkest one. But this ain't black though. That's the point I'm trying to make. They're saying this ain't black. Right. They fool y'all. They fooled me before, but they won't fool me again. So, Mary Boleyn, she was the mistress. This was the big old thing. She was allegedly the mistress of Henry also. But guess who she is? She is the sister of Anne. She's the sister of Anne. You talk about some family drama. So she allegedly, they said she went off and got married, and then they said this secret marriage to a man considered beneath her station angered both King Henry and her sister, Queen Anne, and resulted in Mary's banishment from the royal court. She died 7 years later, having spent the remainder of her life in obscurity. So she went off and got married, and then she pretty much got married to a common dude. And obviously the king was upset and the sister was upset. But they say this is who Mary Boleyn was. I'm supposed to believe it. Mary Boleyn is the sister of Anne Boleyn. I wonder. So, how do we connect all this? Well, we go and look at the list of the Scottish monarchs. The monarch of Scotland was the head of state of the Kingdom of Scotland. According to tradition, the first king of Scots was Kenneth I MacAlpin, who founded the state in 843. Historically, the Kingdom of Scotland is thought to have grown out of an earlier kingdom of the Picts. So our people were over there for a long time, before most of us even know. Though in reality, the distinction is a product of later medieval myth, and because something is allegedly a myth doesn't mean it's not true, and confusion from a change of a nomenclature. The king of the Picts, he became pretty much the king of Alba under Donald II when the annals switched from Latin to vernacular around the end of the 9th century, by which time the word Alba in Scottish Gaelic had come to refer to the kingdom of the Picts rather than Britain. So, a whole bunch of confusion on their part. All you need to know, pretty much, it's the same people. They just changed names, which is what happened. Let me tell you a great piece of wisdom. A lot of people think that black people ended up taking the names of the white slave masters, and that's how we got a lot of our names. But the truth of the matter is, when a lot of our people came over from Ireland, from Scotland, because that was, you say, the last stand, when God was bringing that last monarchy down before he literally sent all of us into captivity over here in America. Our people came up with derivations of the names that we had back then, and they changed the names, or they came up with a name that was similar a lot of times to hide their identity. And so when we came over here and we was living still living pretty cushy lives, which is why if you look at history, you see a lot of black folks that had a lot of money when America was just being established. And you're like, dang, why we weren't taught this in history? Because they don't tell you all that. You see a lot of black people that had slaves and stuff like that. They don't tell you all that. Or they tell you, but they don't tell you the whole story. And then eventually, a lot of our people lost that money, obviously because of our wickedness and stuff like that, because that's why we're in the position that we are in now. And then when the whites started coming over later, now some of them were coming over when we were coming over, but not until later they came over in, if we say, droves. Then they took those names, or they adopted those names before they came over and stuff like that. When they came over, they took over those names and everything. Which is why when you trace those names back, what you say they came from the slave master, where do you think the slave master got it from? Just a little nugget of information. I'm not keeping that name because it's a slave master name, blase, blase. Where did the slave master get it from? Because weren't the people that were coming over during that time period on the slave ships and stuff like that, weren't they black? Didn't Benjamin Franklin tell you they were black? Doesn't the historical records tell you that they were black? So most of the original people that were coming over, that didn't come over on the slave ships, that were slave masters, they were black. And there were laws that was governing how blacks were supposed to take care of other black slaves. And we see that in the Old Testament. Not saying that you didn't have white slave masters, but the white slave masters that people get so stuck on, that didn't come until later. And a lot of them, they just simply took over the land from the black people that they moved or whatever, or they they fell out, something happened to them. So the kingdom of the Picts just became known as Kingdom of Alba in Scottish Gaelic, which later became known in Scots and England as Scotland. So same people pretty much, and that's gonna play a important part, because you're gonna see some things, and you're gonna realize that these are the same people. Just like you had the tribes of Israel fighting amongst each other, right? Same thing was going on here. So I want to scroll down. You see the coat of arms of Scotland, right? From the same thing. I've also used this and made my own family crest, and this was a while back. I didn't know as much as I know now. But I want to go down here and show you why all this is important. Because if Anne was black, Henry was black, Mary was black, we know through them came King James, then we know that most likely King James was black. And we know for a fact that King James was black. They know that King James was black. His sons and his daughters were black. We got the original images. I showed you how they changed it. The evidence is overwhelming. But going all the way back to who they mentioned, Kenneth, right? Kenneth the First. We know about him, Dub. It traces all the way down, right? All the way down. You got Malcolm up in here, which is, where you get Malcolm X. Malcolm X traces his lineage to these people too. If y'all didn't know that. And then you come up in here. What do you see? King James. You got Mary. And you got King James is up in here. You see it traces from the Alpin to the Duke Keld. Then all the little small ones. Then the House of Bruce. House of Stuart. King James. This is his lineage. This is his lineage. This is his lineage. Tracing all the way back here. But they don't tell you that. Oh no, they're not black. They're not black. So we're gonna look at a little bit about me. Now I brought this up purposely because I want you to see something. So it says Kelson, Jewish, Eastern Ashkenazic. Metronymic from the Yiddish female personal name kale, of uncertain origin. So they said we don't know where it came from. Then what does it tell you? Probably in some cases of Scandinavian origin, an Americanized form of a patronymic from the Old Norse personal name Kittel, meaning kettle or helmet. Why did I want to bring this up? So, brother, you Ashkenazi? Remember how the Ashkenazi Jews became the Ashkenazi Jews that they are. They took on the identity of others. Kelson is a ancient Scottish name, and it is going all the way back. It's an ancient Hebrew name. It just in Scottish is how you say it. Kelson. Kelson. Kelson Delta King. Some of you may remember in the super long video, super long sermon, that I showed you my birth certificate and stuff like that. Showed you my family name. I broke that down. And it wasn't originally Kelson Delta King. It was originally Kelson Delta McNeil, because my mother's maiden name was McNeil, and she married a king, Nathaniel Leonard King. So Kelson Delta McNeil, because she pretty much wasn't giving me my father's name. Because like I told you, my dad that raised me was not my biological father. My dad that raised me was not my biological father. So she's like, hey, you're not getting that name. You're not going to get that name. So I had no choice but to take the name McNeil, and then King when she married King. Right? So you may say, well, what's the point? You got Kelson and you got McNeil. Kelson, son of Kale. McNeil, son of Neil. Both of them are Scottish island names. And that's how Hebrews used to do it back in the day. The first name was the last name was the first name. It was the same, but it was describing so a lot of times describe what the father did or the position that the father held in society, stuff like that. It was describing the family. So I am a combination of the Kales, son of Kale, and the McNeils coming together as one in me. And then you have my wife, her side, the Victorias. Some of you know about the Victorias and everything in that royal lineage. And the combining of the two, the same thing we see in the scriptures, it happened with Jesus, it happened with many people. So, the Ashkenazi Jews, they also took this name because they know that this name traces back to Scotland, which traces back to the Hebrews. Now, I can't speak for everybody else because this is my own personal revelation that I'm sharing with y'all. So everybody else's may not be the same. Well, that ain't true. How you gonna sit there and say it ain't true when I can give you the evidence and show you? Because it doesn't apply to somebody else. My people didn't come over on slave ships like that. Not all of us came over on slave ships, but all of us ended up in slavery. So, just wanted to show you that, just to prove a point. The Ashkenazi took that too, because this is Hebrew. Obviously, it's pronounced this way in English, but it traces back to Hebrew. I'm going to show you some more of the connections. So, last name is supposed to be Kelson, but my first name is my last name. The Hebrew did that all the time. Says of Scandinavian origin, kale, Old Norse, same thing we just read. Caldron, suffix is son of kale, son of kale. And some of you know what kale is in Hebrew. Kale is another name for God. Son of God. Lowercase s. I am a son of God. See, I know who I am. I know why I'm here. And it's written in my name just like it was written in Christ's name. And just like it was written in all the other Hebrews' names who came before me. See, I can prove who I am. I can prove that where I came from. I can prove why I'm here. I can tie it all together. I'm trying to help y'all to understand who you are. But how can I help you understand who you are if I don't understand who I am? I know that I agreed to come here. But those revelations don't come until later in life for a lot of people, because if God just gave it to you, you'd be like, man, you wouldn't be able to handle it. So he gives it to you over time. Son of kale. Go look up kale in Hebrew. The root of it is El, son of God. And that's what I am. So I'll give you some different examples. It says pre-7th century Anglo-Saxon and Norse baptismal names were usually distinctive compounds whose elements were often associated with the gods of fire, water, and war. Which is why you saw the word helmet. But it's associated with the gods. It's associated with God. So, Scandinavian patronymic surnames are unusual in that up until a recent time that is from the mid 17th century onwards, people were given their father's Christian name with the patronymic suffix son. So, Kale, son of Kale, son of God, son of the gods. God said, "Ye shall be God. You have it's not written. You are gods." My bad. Don't roast me. I know who said it. I'm talking about the Book of Psalms. But Satan was manipulating what God said, because Jesus did say, "Ye are gods." So, and that's why he tried to get on them. Christ was professing to be the Son of God, and they were like, how you gonna say that? And he was trying to tell them, like, well, how you gonna get mad at me for professing and claiming to be the Son of God, capital S, when it's written that I said that ye are gods, lowercase g. So I am a son of God, big G, and a son of the gods, lowercase g, the gods of the scriptures, because they were elevated to the status of a god by God himself, and that's the lineage that I come from. And if you don't know, I gotta say it. How I define a god generically is a immortal being. Is the Apostle Paul immortal? Yes. That hath the knowledge of good and evil. Is the Apostle Paul? Does the Apostle Paul have the knowledge of good and evil? Yes. Is he a Hebrew? Yes. But chooses to do good rather than evil. Did the Apostle Paul choose to do good rather than evil? Yes. And I come from that lineage. So, yeah. Just to show you that, we're going to go to our next point. McNeil, as I told you, you got Kelson, we got McNeil, I got Knights, my grandfather. His last name is Arthur Knight. My grandma's name is Mary Ann. Like the whole lineage, when I traced it back, it was all there. And the Lord led me to that. So recorded in many forms. You see right there, we're not going to read all of them. It said this is a surname of pre-8th century what? Gaelic origins. Same people. Same people. It derived from the word nail, meaning champion, which makes sense. A meaning which no doubt greatly assisted in popularity through Northern Europe. In a sense, by a transposition of identity, it can be Irish, Scottish, or Norman English. Originally, the name was adopted in Ireland by invading Scandinavians who made Dublin their capital. Dub. Remember Dub? We're going to look at him one more time. Then in the form of Najal, how you pronounce it, it was introduced both to Norway, Iceland, and the Isle of Man, as well as into what became known as Normandy in France during the 9th century. So, now watch this. Watch this. This is what they try to trick you at. But we got the evidence to disprove their trickery. Neil, as a first name, was often Latinized in England as Nigel or Nigelus through an incorrect association with Niger, where we get nigger from, meaning black. So they say, oh no, it's not associated. Neil is not associated with Nigel, which means nigger, which means black. It's not associated with that. But they're lying. They're lying. I'm gonna prove it to you that they're lying. Well, you should already know if you watch the other sermons. You know they're lying. So we talk about McNeil, son of Neil, son of the blacks. What blacks are they describing? The blacks of Ireland, Scotland that was in that area. Where did they come from? They came from Spain. Where did they come from? They came from Spain by way of Israel, by way of Israel, the lineage. We have discussed that in our previous sermons. So, Neil, champion, picked up by the Vikings in Ireland, brought by them to Iceland and Norway, thence to France, from which place it introduced in England at the conquest, incorrectly Latinized as Nigelus, on mistaken association with Niger, which means black. That's what they tell you, but they're lying. They are lying. How do we know? Because one way we know is because Dub, King of Scotland, Dub Macmel, or Duff Malcolm, as we saw earlier, the black. They used to name themselves after themselves. Dub the Black King. So that's how we know, and other evidence too. Dub, King of Scotland, was black. He was black. Not just because he put the black title, because, for whatever reason. Like I was called to say, King the Red. King of America, the Red, or Red King of Hot Springs, Arkansas, because that's where I'm at. Why you call yourself Red? Because of all the blood I shed here and everything. Or, something crazy, whatever. You know how people do. But this is not the case here. We know that. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but we know that for a fact. That they were, he was known as Dub the Black King. Because he was black and his people were black. And then you also see it, let me see, where's it at? See if I got it in here. I don't see it specifically, but you can pause and you can read it and you can see that the Picts, the Scots, they're the same people. The same people fighting amongst each other. Just going by different names. So, Niger Val Dub, King Kenneth of the Picts. The Moors were dominant in Scotland in the 10th century. One of them was known as King Kenneth. Dub took his name from his ancestor, as we just saw on that chart. Sometimes as Niger or Dub, a surname which means the black man. They're really saying the sons of the black people. And like I said, we have covered that in the previous sermon, so I'm not going to cover everything here. It is a historical fact that Niger Val Dub lived and reigned over certain black divisions in Scotland, and that a race known as the Sons of the Blacks succeeded him in history. J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race. You can go get that book if you want to. It's out there. So he covers a lot of this stuff. They call themselves the Sons of the Black. Well, where these black people come from? I already told you. Kenneth III of Scotland was King of Scotland from 997 to 1005. He was the son of King Dub, fourth cousin of the previous King Constantine III, and first cousin of his successor Malcolm II. Kenneth was the last king of Scotland to succeed to the throne through the system of tanistry, whereby the succession was shared between two family lines, and the dying king named the person from the other family line who was to succeed him. Like I told you, on a personal level, personal revelation, Kale's son on one side, McNeil on the other side, the two being brought together as one through Delta, the door. Because Delta means door. We know the door represents Christ. And then because of that, you have the two being brought into one. The reconciling of the two, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. I represent that. Not saying I'm not the only one, but I represent that in my name and what I'm called to do. And because you have the Kale son of Kale, McNeil, son of Neil, the two being brought together through the Delta, the door, Christ, I am now a king. Kelson Delta King. Because Kale's son of Kale, is also one who dwells by the river. So you see the same thing, just like you see with Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. My name was changed from Kelson. It was actually changed more than that, but I'm going to get to that in a second. Because I was supposed to be named something else, but it's going to tie into this also. It's still the same thing. Y'all be arguing over names and stuff, but you don't even realize what's going on. But I went from Kelson Delta McNeil to Kelson Delta King. Now I have that title of King. You see what I'm saying? No more arguing, no more fighting. But the name is still represented what's going on with the Kale son, which from my understanding, the Kale son would be on my father's side. And then the McNeil on my mother's side. So you have the male and the female come together as one in Christ to birth me. And then I become a king. So the reconciling of the male and the female, because the male and the female are at war, and the reconciling of the two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, through Christ. So, just a little personal revelation. We go on. It says, the system was much discredited as it ensured the two royal families of Scotland were in a constant state of war with each other, which is true. I'm going to kill him, so, you know what I'm saying, the other one would have no choice but to choose the other family member. But I'm going to kill him. It's just a continued back and forth war. So this just gives you a little bit of history and stuff like that. Leading up to, you know, obviously King James and everything, and then leading up to us. But we want to push forward. I'm going to go look at the McNeil history. As I told you, McNeil on my mother's side. And it's what Ireland and Scotland. And my mother's full name, every aspect of her name traces back to the same place. Even her middle name, which is we say it's a weird but also unique middle name, just like my name. My mother's name was Leticia, and I trace that back to the same place, same people, same area, Portrayed. with the little hyphen at the top. My name is Kelson Delte with a little hyphen at the top. Portrayed, and I traced portrayed. I like portrayed, and when I saw what it meant, it was just evidence after evidence after evidence. What the Lord was showing me, yes, 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 yes. The ancestors of the McNeil family come from the ancient Scottish kingdom of Dalridia. Their surname comes from the personal name Neil. The Gaelic form, McNeil translate as son of Neil. So I have a double name, which is the same thing we see with the Hebrews. Son of Kale, son of Neil. So, talk about the kings of these places during this time period and everything. I'm not going to read all of it. Let's give you some different variations and stuff like that. It tells you that settlers from Scotland put down roots in communities all along the east coast of North Africa. Right? Some moved north from the American colonies to Canada as United Empire lawyers during the American War of Independence. And then it says, as clan societies and highland gangs started in North America in the 20th century, many Scots rediscovered parts of their heritage. Now, these are the modern day Scots. These are the modern day Scots and whatnot. These show you just some of the places that they settled at. You see Dugald, you see the root like dub and everything. But we're gonna go over here and show you Kelson. Matter of fact, let's go back. You see the family crest. You see the family crest and everything for McNeil, and then also for family, Kelson, right? England, same area. What I want to do is I want to go down and I want to show you something. That show you some of the records they have of people with the name Kelson that settled here in America. Now I want you to look at these dates. 1665 to 1666, they got Ann Kelson. My grandma's name is Mary Ann, and she got it, I think, from her mother or, great grandma. I can't remember. I got it written down somewhere or whatever. Which is a combination of two Mary Ann, but we also see you have Ann Boleyn, and then her sister Mary Boleyn. Hence Mary Ann. That was my grandma's still alive. Mary Ann. That's what we call. We call her Ann, but it's actually two or whatnot. But just showing you my own personal revelations. But just show you right here, Ann Kelson, 1665 to 1666. Remember, Benjamin Franklin wrote the observations concerning mankind that said that the people of Europe and those areas, they were predominantly black or tawny. He wrote that in 1751. So she came over in 1665. Ann Kelson, from that same area where blacks were dominating. John Kelson, Colb Kelson in Virginia, Maryland. Guess what? These are all Hebrew names. Ann is a Hebrew name. John is a Hebrew name. Obviously, we speak it as John. Kelson is a Hebrew name. Yes, I know it traces to Scotland, Ireland, all these different places, but from there it traces back to Hebrew. Kelson, son of Kale, son of Kale, son of El, son of the gods, son of God. That's what I am. I am a son of God. Are you son of God? Well, you ain't no son of God? Dang. I didn't know you weren't a son of God. I'm trying to help you. So if I say I'm a son of God and it's in my name, you got a problem with it. Because you're not a son of God? That's your fault. You're not a daughter of the Most High God? That's your fault. It just shows your jealousy. This is to help you. This is to show you that God has his people here on earth. And we can prove it. James Kelson, 18th century, 1798. A few years after, 1751? We know James Hebrew name, who settled in Philadelphia. That's where I was born at. Thomas Kelson, another Hebrew name in the first part, settled in Philadelphia where I was born. John Henry Kelson, like come on, who arrived in Mobile County. My people are all in Mobile. You think that's just a coincidence? I got most of my people right now are in Mobile, Alabama. Mobile, Bay Minette, Fairhope, Foley, Alabama. We all up in there. Amasa Kelson, who landed in New York. My dad is from New York. William Kelson, another Hebrew name who arrived in what? Philadelphia. All the areas where my people are at. You know how close Philadelphia is to New York? Mobile, we all up in there. These are my people right here. John Kelson, who landed in Alabama in 1917. But this is an interesting one. Amasa Kelson. But all these are Hebrew names. I proved it in the video I did before the 10-hour sermon. Go watch it. Break it down to pieces. So you know this. Amasa Kelson. Amasa. Or Amma, how you pronounce it right here, is a person mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. His mother was Abigail, a sister of King David, and Zuriah, the mother of Joab. Hence, Amasa was a nephew of David and cousin of Joab. David's military commander, as well as a cousin, I read it right? David's military commander, as well as a cousin of Absalom, David's son. David calls him my bone and my flesh. I don't have to make it up. Amasa's father was Jether, who was also called Ithra. So he ended up making him a commander for life, and then he ended up being killed. I believe he was killed unrighteously. You know, I think Joab wanted to just get back in power or whatnot, so he had him killed. So Amasa is a Hebrew name, and is it a coincidence they said Amasa Kelson? I wonder. I wonder, are these Hebrews coming over here? Oh, don't worry. In the future videos, we're going to give you even more evidence. So, as I told you, my name wasn't always going to be Kelson Delte, McNeil, or King, or whatever. I technically never got the McNeil name completely because they didn't name me, from my understanding, until like later, because they were trying to figure out what they were going to call me. So even though my mother's maiden, surname, last name is McNeil, I didn't completely inherit it, but I still inherited it from my mother, because like I said, they didn't know what they were going to name me. So like I said, on the birth certificate it says Kelson Delte King, because my mother married a man with the last name King, right? They were originally going to name me Maurice, but they ended up naming me Kelson. So I thought it was going to be some great story. My mother didn't name me, my aunt named me. My aunt gave her the name, and I asked my family, I asked my mama specifically, I said, what's the story behind my name? I'm thinking it's going to be some, great story or whatever. Like, God came to me in a vision and this and that, this and that. And they were like, that's just what we named you. Your aunt came up with a name and we decided to go with it. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, it wasn't nothing like, nothing what you're thinking. It's just what we named you. I'm like, oh. Then I realized that they named me that because that's what the Lord told them to name me. He gave a name to my aunt, and then my aunt gave the name to obviously my mother, and then she gave it to me. because they were originally going to name me Maurice. That's what they were originally going to name me, Maurice. So I would have been Maurice Deltay or Maurice McNeil, which it ties into the same place, meaning pretty much the same thing. So the Lord had me to be named Kale's son for a specific reason. And I know that reason is because of the things that I'm preaching today, because of who I am. Obviously, I didn't know who I was until the Lord revealed it to me. But now that I know, I'm able to walk more and more in who I am. So Maurice means what? Is more. It is ethnic and derives from Marus, meaning Moorish, or literally dark, black. So Maurice literally means black. So they were technically going to name me the Black King, or if I would have took the name McNeil, the Black Son of Neil. But we know the McNeil name comes from a lineage of royalty, a lineage of kings. So either way, it was still going to end up being the same thing. But the reason that my mother ended up marrying Nathaniel Leonard King is for some other reasons. Some other personal reasons that I have revealed in previous sermons. But it was still going to end up being the same, because McNeils come from the lineage of the Neils, who were a lineage of kings. They come from the original king of King Neil, whatnot, that we just saw earlier. So it was still going to be the same thing. Maurice, the Black King, Maurice Deltay King, or Maurice, the son of Neil, who Neil was a king. I'm black. So God is showing us some things. Obviously showing me some personal things and whatnot. He goes on and says, this was on the basis that the Moors from Morocco were dark, and they had brought themselves to world notice by conquering parts of Spain, defeating the up to then all-conquering Roman army. And we know that our people were over there in Spain. We already know how we mixed in the Moors. We already know a lot of our people, they end up, they were original Moors and everything. And some of them just took it on in regards to when the whole Moorish thing ended up being more of a religion in that aspect. But they did it taking on Islam and stuff like that to hide their identity because they were being persecuted. And we discussed that before in our previous sermons. So it goes on and it says, it is therefore perhaps surprising that during the Dark Ages from the 5th to 10th century AD, it's not really surprising if you actually understand history, the name as Mar in its many varied form became a popular personal name in the days before surnames, being used in the Christian world as a baptismal name for any child with dark hair or dark complexion. Complexion is not confusing because they knew what they were doing. In the Christian world, during this time period, the 5th and 10th century, they were naming their children Moors, black, because of their dark hair or dark complexion. We know come on now, the dark complexion. They were coding their names. And it said what in the Christian world. Because a lot of them, they were not really Christian. They professed to be Christian. And they were coding their names in the same way you had dubbed the Black King. They were doing that right here too. And they say, oh, it's surprising. No, it's not surprising when you understand what was really going on. So yeah. We're going to go on to our next point. Let me close out some of these tabs. Go to Maurice. Again, it says Maurice is a traditionally masculine given name, also used as a what? As a surname. So it still would have been the same thing. Maurice is a surname. It It originates as a French name derived from the Latin Mauritius or Mauritius and was subsequently used in other languages. Its popularity is due to Mauritius, a saint of the Theban legion. Mauritius is otherwise attested as a given name of the Roman Empire period in origin, meaning one from Mauritania, i.e. the Moor. One from Mauritania. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Like I said, I'm giving my own testimony, my own personal revelation, so don't get mad at me because I'm giving my own personal revelation, my own testimony in regard to things that Christ has revealed to me. I did some videos before. I told y'all that I told you where I come from. I come from a heavenly realm, heavenly world. And I told you that when you come into this flesh, you forget, but you don't forget. You don't forget because it's written in your DNA. And deja vu is the Lord bringing back to remembrance that you technically already done all this because it's already written. Because you know what deja vu. You're like, man, I already done this. Because you have. It's already written that you've done this. So, like I said, I'm giving my own personal revelation, my own personal testimony. So, just calm down. Over time, the Lord revealed more and more to me about who I am. And because of that personal revelation, I've been able to walk more and more in who I am. There's power in that. He showed me that he sent me here. He showed me the purpose of why I'm here, which is what I'm doing now, preaching the gospel. He also showed me, and I mentioned this many times before, that I made a promise, I made a vow to him before I even came into this world. I made a vow when I was in the heavenly world before I don't understand all of it, but I understand enough because all of it has not been revealed to me. But I know that I made a promise before I came here. I made a vow before I came here. And then when I got here, some of you know the story, but I'm going to tell it real fast. When I was around, we're going to say between 12 and 15 years old, I remember the Lord speaking like, who will go for us? And I said, I will go, Lord, I'll go. And then pretty much, I can say it now because I understand it better. He was like, so it will be done. Okay, you will go. And like I said, I didn't know nothing about the scripture like that to be saying something like that. But I remember that just like it was yesterday. I remember like the day my sons were born. And the first time I held him and looked into his eyes. Something you would never forget. But I didn't know nothing about no Bible. But I remember I made that vow to God. And I didn't realize until later that God was quoting scripture to me and I was confirming what I said I was going to do before I came here. And I remember reading that scripture one time and I was like, what? This happened to me. But I forgot it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then it came back to my remembrance again and I could never find the scripture. I was like literally going throughout all the Bible and I could not find that scripture for the life of me. Like if my life depended on me finding that scripture and somebody gave me a year to find that scripture to read the whole Bible, I still would not have found it because the Lord didn't want me to find it because he was showing me something. And so I was like, okay, Lord, maybe it's not meant for me to find it. So I went on with my life. Then it came back to my remembrance again. And then I eventually found the scripture and then I had the understanding. I'm like, dang, this same thing happened to me. Now I understand the story completely and what's going on. So, like I said, this is where it gets interesting. I want to give you that backstory because of Mauritania, which means the Moor, the black one. Now, why is that interesting to me? When you understand what Mauritania is, some of you don't know this, but Let me see if I got it up. No, I ain't got it up. Some of you don't know this, but Mauritania, let me see if I can bring it up real fast. Mauritania, which is in Africa, right, is where Atlantis was. Yes, the fabled Atlantis. I mentioned that before, but I didn't make the connection until I was doing this sermon, or as I was putting the notes and stuff together. Mauritania, again, is where the ancient Atlantis was. Am I saying that I was there in the ancient Atlantis? I'm not saying that, because I don't know. But what I am saying is that God made a connection showing me that, hey, before you were, I knew you. Before you knew who you were, I knew you. You were with me. And that's exactly what the scriptures tell us. I don't even completely understand and know who I am. Not yet. Which is exactly what the scriptures say. But what I do know is what I know. And so I'm telling you this stuff to hopefully show you that the scriptures are real. I'm telling you this stuff because if I don't understand me, then how can I help you to understand who you are and where you came from and what you're trying to get back to? I'm trying to get back to the promised land, which I am. I'm going back. I'm trying to get back to what we would call Atlantis. This great civilization. Obviously not the Atlantis of that time period, because we know it was flooded out. And yes, Mauritania 100% is the ancient Atlantis, where the Moors ruled. They had this ancient knowledge. So that's the connection, this ancient knowledge. What the Lord was showing me is that this ancient knowledge has been passed down through generation after generation after generation. Through that lineage. Coming all the way to Christ. Originated with Christ, obviously, and the Father. Coming down through everybody else. And ultimately to myself and others. Which is why, because we're in the Spirit, we can preach it so easy, like it's just natural to us, because it is. It's written in our DNA. So, let's continue on. Again, Maurice, inhabitant of Mauritania, Moor. So we jump over here, we go to Moor. And I'm gonna make it even. I'm gonna make it not even, but I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make a. Let me slow down. I'm gonna make another connection, showing you that I'm not making this up because I don't have to. Moor, to fasten, which is a ship in a particular location by cables or anchors. So God fastened me in a particular location, like, hey, you're going in this direction, and you ain't got no choice because it's written and you agreed to it. Right? So, go ahead, tells you, black, we already know these things. Being a dark people in relation to the Europeans, which is not true. They're making a connection with the modern Europeans. And it says the name in the Middle Ages was a synonym for Negro. And a lot of people have made connection with the Negro going all the way back to the Hebrews. So most of your original Moors are Hebrews. Most of your original Moors are Hebrews. So what I really want to key in on is this: Moor, to fasten, which is a ship in a particular location. So you're going to make sure it stays where it's supposed to stay at. Kelson also means one who dwells by the river. A tree that dwells by the river. I'm fastened there. And we know what a delta is in regards to land masses and stuff like that. But watch this. Kelson. The Kelson or Kelson is what? Is a reinforcing structural member on top of the keel in the hull of a wooden vessel. A ship. Right there. A support piece. Obviously, this is Christ. I'm a support piece. The chief cornerstone. That we are built up. The ark. You see what I'm saying? So, Christ is showing you something even with my own testimony. Again, just in case you don't believe it. Part of a ship, right? To fasten a ship. Come on now. So the Recot structure in Mauritania has also been proposed as a site of Atlantis. Like I said, you can go research that for yourself. But it's 100%. It's 100% true. It's 100%. It's done. It's done. It's written in stone. Like I've studied it. I said I was gonna do a video on it, but I haven't gotten to doing a video on it or whatever. But you can research it for yourself, and you will see the evidence is overwhelming. Mauritania, which is in Africa, was the lost city of Atlantis. Oh yeah, did we forget to mention that Satan, when he was Lucifer, he was technically what we would call a Hebrew, or you get Israelite, whatever, how you want to say it, which is the same thing he's going to do today. He's going to lay hold to that lineage. And when he was Lucifer, he was ruling over what we call Atlantis in the pre-Adamic Earth Age in Mauritania, Africa. And God wiped it out with a flood. I'm just saying. So remember we were talking about tannin? Let's make this connection. Another reason why they hate us so much. Tannin was a sea monster in Canaanite and Hebrew mythology used as a symbol of chaos and evil. That's interesting when you make the connection with the color brown and what we read earlier. The Bible mentions tannin, this sea monster. So, how do you think most people see us as? They see us as a symbol of chaos and evil. They see us as sea monsters. This is why all this matters. Now, God is creating in Genesis, right? And God says, let's go back up. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and fowl that they may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters bring forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and the creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Then we know what it says, right? And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. So he's giving us dominion, right? We put that dominion over these creatures that he made on the 5th day. And over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So he gave us dominion over the fish of the sea, but he didn't give us dominion over the sea. Did you notice that? He said you can have dominion over all the earth, but he didn't say You have dominion over this, over all the sea. You know why? Because the sea represents the spirit, and we cannot have dominion over all the sea because God Himself has dominion over all the sea. But He gave us dominion over all the earth and over the fish of the sea, which includes these great whales. Now, why is that important? Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? Let me go back up here. I'm missing something. Yeah, I'm moving too fast. Let's go back here. And matter of fact, I think I got it up, don't I? Yeah, I think I do. Let me go back. I'm getting ahead of myself. There we go. Whales. Great whales. They're mentioned as what? Tannin. Now I want to go back here. Tannin was a sea monster. Right? So God said He made these great sea monsters, these great sea creatures. You want to call them monster? You can call them monster. You don't want to call them monster? Don't. When we break it down, it tells us dragon, serpent, whale, sea monster. So on the fifth day, He made the physical form of these sea monsters, these great dragons, these great sea dragons. So when the serpent came and deceived Eve, where did he come from? He came from the sea. He didn't come as this great, ugly looking sea monster dragon. He came as a man on a dry land. Ooh. Are they teaching you these things? So we're talking about great whale, talking about dragon, serpent, sea monster, dragon, or dinosaur. Because we know that dinosaurs walk with man. Dinosaurs were on the earth with Adam and Eve. So you have the ones in the sea, then you have the ones that were on the land. You have ones that can go in the land and in the sea. Sea or river monster, serpent, venomous snake. So you think that the great dragon, the great whale, he came out the sea like this ugly creature? No. He was in the form of a man. But all that was symbolizing what was really going on. Again, it tells you what? Tannin. Same word. Intensive from the same as H. You see it right here. We'll look at it. A marine or what? Land monster. Sea serpent or jackal. Dragon. Sea monster. Serpent. Whale. I think that's all. See what it tells us right here. Let's go right here real fast. From the word tan. This brown monster. Cause we know what tan means, right? So they talking about some maybe the extinct dinosaur, Plesiosaurus. Man, stop it. Stop it. So now you have a better understanding of why they look at us as what? Sea serpents. They look at us as they look at us as great dragons. Because the power that we're supposed to possess. The power to bring chaos. The power to bring evil. When people are being evil, they look at us as evil, just like they look at Christ as evil. We're bringing good, but they look at us as these sea monsters. These brown sea monsters. Which is why brown is the least favorite color of the modern day Europeans and the modern day Americans. When historically the people were these dark tan colors or light brown colors or whatnot, you know what I'm saying? All different shades. So I'm going to break it down to you. They ain't going to break it down to you like that because they don't want you to know these things. So let me go back. Let me close some of this stuff. And Y'all give me a second. I want to go back to Genesis. And I want to go to right here, where God gives the dominion. I'm going to prove it to you that Satan was in the form of a man walking around when he came and deceived Eve. He was not this great ugly dragon sea monster coming out of the sea. But the interesting thing is the Bible speaks about that in the book of Revelation. The serpent coming out of the sea, coming out of the midst of the people and stuff like that, out of the spirit, because you have what? Semen, S-E-M-E-N. I told you that before. Spirit men, because we come from the spirit, and these creatures also come from the spirit too, and we were given dominion over them. So when Adam and Eve they fell, we became less than these sea creatures. We became less than these creatures that we read about in the scriptures, because they then had dominion over us. They then had dominion over us because of what Adam and Eve did. So then Christ had to come to exalt us back to the position that we were supposed to be in, because their judgment was already written, meaning the a lot of those sea creatures and stuff like that. Their judgment was already written, but they wanted to get back to that position by causing us to fall and to rule over us, who God gave rulership to rule over them. And we see with Christ, what did he say? He said, I give you power to tread over all the power of the enemy and serpents and scorpions. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? So watch this. He says, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion. Let's look at this word dominion real fast. Let's look at it real fast. Have rulership, take, prevail, reign, tread down, the same thing that Christ just said in the spirit about treading over the enemy, right? Subjugate, to dominate, to scrape out. We were supposed to rule over them and destroy them, and then that was going to be our glory. But we know what happened. That's why you hear these stories about, King Arthur. He defeated the dragon and all these different stories. But watch this. He said, have dominion over what? Over the fish. Daga, right? Some of you should know where I'm going with this. Daga, let's see how it's pronounced.
Strong's H1710. Daga.
Daga. Daga, right? Fish, right? But let me see if it tells me in here, or we're going to go to another point. Okay, we'll go here. Dagon. Daga is where you get Dagon, which is what? Or who? God of the Philistines, represented as having the upper what? Body of a man and the lower part of a fish. From the Hebrew, Dagon, from dag, which is fish, which is rooted in what? This right here. Which is the same thing God said, fish. Dagon, the god Dagon. This is Satan. Satan. So Dagon, right? He came up out of the water. Y'all know the story. We ain't got to go into it. Maybe we'll go into it one day. Right? He was an ancient Mesopotamian and ancient Canaanite deity. We know the Mesopotamian civilization came more so from Ashur. The Bible speaks about the Assyrian in regards to the Antichrist. So you see the connection. And then the Kemetic brothers and everything, they got a lot of their stuff from the Mesopotamians. But they don't tell you that. They say, oh, what y'all got from us. But they don't talk about the Mesopotamian culture. And the Mesopotamian culture was set up by the Assyrians. And the Assyrians, they came from Assur. And Assur is who we would call, he's a Hebrew Israelite. He comes from that lineage. He wouldn't be technically what we call Hebrew Israelite today because he was before, before them. But he comes from that lineage. And we have discussed that in our previous sermons. So what they got from us. Which is why they try to cause confusion. Because they want you to worship their gods. But God had already warned us not to. And it's interesting, he has all these colors. All these colors, all these scales and everything. A long-standing association with a Canaanite word for fish, perhaps going back to the Iron Age, has led to interpretation as a fish god. Well, Christ just told you in the scriptures that these were great whales that he created and he gave us dominion over them. So do you see what's going on? And the association of merman motifs in what? In Assyrian art, such as Dagon relief found by this dude right here. Because that's what it traces back to. Mesopotamia and the Assyrians. The merman, the mermaids. They come out the water and they walk on the land and everything. They come from the spiritual realm. These great beings. The god's name derived from the root dgn, which is to be cloudy, implying that he was originally a weather god. Satan is the prince of the power of the air. He's being associated with clouds. I will ascend above the clouds, and thus with rain indicates his strong role as an agricultural god. My. So what you have is you have all these nations. They are in cahoots together. They know all this. And they're doing any and everything as long as they can to keep you from the truth. So that you can hopefully die before you come to the saving grace of God. Or you can just get to the point where you don't care because you focus on everything else. Keep not thy silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. You know what kale means? To conceal, to hide. Let me see if I got it in my notes. I think I got it in my notes. We'll go look at it. We'll go look at it. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. They are consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Because when you're confederate against God, Israel, you're confederate against God. The tabernacle of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur, that's family right there. Technically, a lot of this is family. Also is joined with them, but he's making a point that Assur is joined with them. The Assyrians, they have hope in the children of Lot, Selah. We know who the children of Lot are. So Assur strengthened them and said, hey, you rode us, we got you. So this is what's going on, right? This is what's going on. But before I forget, let me go over here and let me plug this so I can show you. And we see what? Kale. To cover, conceal, save. And also you see what? The root of it, it forms, well not the root of it, but it forms what? Part of helmets. Interesting. And you see Kale son did with what? Helmet. Also what? Apocalypse. Because I am a son of the apocalypse. What's the apocalypse deal with? Jesus Christ. I'm a son of Jesus Christ. I'm a son of God. So I told you I ain't got to make it up. But he hid me. He hid me. I was hidden. I'm one of the hidden ones, and now I'm being revealed in these last days. So I wanted to make sure I gave you that. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is the declaration of. I'm not going to pronounce it. We're going to skip it, but the declaration of the Scots, Declaration of Scotland, Declaration of Independence of Scotland. Now, some of the stuff I don't agree with, what they said or whatever, but remember I told you earlier that you had the two families, Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom, they were warring. The war spilled over to this area too. So they speak about this to the Pope. To the most saintly Father in Christ the Lord John, by divine providence. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Now remember, I told you before, just because it says Holy Roman Catholic Church doesn't mean that it applies to what you have been taught today. So we're not going to go through all these names, but what I want to do is I want to go down. I want to show you what they tell you. They tell you they're Hebrews. Most Holy Father, I'm reading according to what they say. I don't agree with that, but hey. And Lord, we know from the deeds of the ancients, and we read from books, because among the other great nations, of course, our nation of Scots have been described in many publications, that crossing from Greater Scythia via the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Pillars of Hercules, come on now, you know these areas, we discussed this before, and living in Spain. They're telling you that they were in this area. They came from Spain. Among the fiercest tribes for many years, it could be conquered by no one anywhere, no matter how barbarous the tribes, because that's where a lot of our people came from. Came from Spain, Iberia Peninsula, and came over to this area because our people were already traveling over here way back before it was being written down the way it is today. Afterwards, watch this, coming from there 1,200 years from the Israelite people's crossing of the Red Sea to his home in the west, which it now holds, having first thrown out the Britons. We ain't talking about the modern day Britons, we're talking about ancient Britons, and completely destroyed the Picts. We mentioned the Picts. The Picts became the Scotlands. It's the same people. It's the two families fighting against each other. And even though it was often attacked by the Norse, same people, the Danes, because the tribe of Dan and everything, they was over there. The tribe of Dan, they had the ships, and they was, if I recall correctly, they were the original ones that went over there. And then they got in trouble because when Israel and their family, well, not the tribes of Israel, they were being attacked and everything, Dan didn't help. He just pretty much stood by the wayside. He didn't help like he was supposed to. And some other stuff with Dan. But I know for a fact, and I showed you in the sermon, the 10-hour sermon, I keep on plugging it, that the tribe of Dan, their people was traveling way back then to that area, Scotland, Ireland, or whatnot. But it wasn't known like that because the Lord didn't want it to be known, because he was going to use that to hide a lot of his people, including King James, who God used to get the scriptures in our hands. And now here I am today. So this is just all family fighting. These people are telling you that, hey, we come from the Israelite people. And they were fighting amongst their own people. Because we read earlier about the Picts. The Picts and the Scots, they're the same people. It says it fought back with many victories and countless labors. And it has held itself ever since, free from all slavery. So they tried to run from it because they didn't want to be under the rulership of you know what I'm saying, the ones that were ruling then. Just like you have the northern and southern tribes. And God said he was going to make the two sticks into one. So this is just a part of this history where the two sticks, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdoms, were fighting amongst each other. So in their own kingdom, 113 kings have reigned of their own blood royal without interruption by foreigners. So they were looking at the other people like, y'all foreigners to us. They were looking at their own people as foreigners. They were looking at the Picts and the ancient Britons, that same people, as foreigners. We're not going to be ruled by y'all. That's what they were pretty much saying. So I'm not going to read all of this. They profess themselves to be believers and everything. You can go read it for yourself, as you see. But I just want to show you that. Then we go over here and it says the name of the Celts, right? And so the name of the Celts is what? Keltoi. This name comes from this, or actually it's the other way around, depending on how you look at it. Because the K, this would, let me make sure I explain it right. This would have originally been Celtoi, because the K is derived from the C. The K is pretty much derived from the C. But to also think about it, Kel, Cel, son of Kale, son of Kale, same thing. So I'm a son of the Kale, son of the Celtics. Right? So I want to show you that it's right here. And then you see right here, the newbie, we saw that earlier, right? Because it's rooted in Dan. We have discussed that before, because the Danites were over there. Then it goes and said the etymology of this name and that of the Gauls. The Gauls. So these people who are the Celts are the Gauls. Now you may say, well, what's the point of all this? What's the point? Well, I'm going to tell you in a minute. So let's read this. The linguistic sense of Celts, a grouping of all speakers of Celtic languages, is modern. There is scant record of the term Celt being used prior to the 7th century in connection with the inhabitants of Ireland and Great Britain during the Iron Age, according to what they say, right? Then he said he made a connection. It said, you can read it for yourself. But let's see something. Celt, also Celt, right? Same thing we just read. Herodotus' word for the Gauls, same thing we just read, who also were called Galata. Sound familiar? Galatians. Galatia was originally established by the Celtic people, and the Celtic people were and are Hebrews, used by the Romans of continental Gauls, but apparently not of the British Celtic tribes. Don't get confused. You got modern day, you got ancient. That's all you need to know right now. Then you can go do the research on your own. Originally in English, in reference to ancient peoples. Well, we know who the ancient peoples are. Extension to their modern descendants is by 1830s, right? It also means stone chisel. This name was given to them, or they chose it, however it happened, for a reason. Now, it says, it ties into the scriptures, that they were graven with an iron pen and lead in the rock forever. And it ties in with this word right here, Celt, which means stone chisel. Now, why is that important? I'm going to show you why. So, the Celtic are the Gauls, who are the Galatians. They are the Galatians. Galatia was an ancient area in the highlands of central Anatolia, roughly corresponding to the provinces of Ankara, and however you pronounce it, in modern Turkey. If you know about Turkey in the Bible, then you know. You know that you know you know. The 7 churches were located where? The 7 churches that Christ addressed Where were they at? In Turkey. Galatia was named after the Gauls. The Gauls are the Celtic. The Celtic are the Hebrews that traveled over there, who settled here and became its ruling case. I think how you say that. In the 3rd century BC, following the Gallic invasion of the Balkans in 279 BC. It has been called the Gallia of the East, Roman writers calling its inhabitants Galli, Gauls, or Celts. So we don't have to make this stuff up. Now, go down here, and it says by the 1st century BC, the Celts had become so Hellenized that some Greek writers called them Helleno-Galatia, meaning that our people took on the ways of these people right here, of the modern Greeks. We lost our way. Same thing the scriptures said was going to happen, right? It said the Romans called them Gallio Greeks, or however you say it, but you get the point. So they had names for us the same way they have names for us today. They're African Americans. They're niggers. They're all these different things. Though the Celts had to a large extent integrated into Hellenistic Asia Minor, they preserved their linguistic and ethnic identity. Ethnic. Like, come on. So they were Hellenized, but they said, hey, we know who we are. We know that we are Hebrews. But we're gonna do everything you do. In the same way you have quote unquote African Americans. They know. You have pastors in the pulpit who know that we are the people, that we are Hebrews. But they continue in the ways of being Hellenized. They continue in the Hellenistic way. No different. There's nothing new under the sun. So, we go over here. We go to Galatians. We've got a little bit more. We're going to close it out. Because Galatians is named after the Celtic, who are originally Hebrews. Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but by Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead, and all the brethren which are with me. So who's he writing to? Unto the what? The churches of Galatia. The churches of Galatia. So you had Hebrews that were also the Celtic, that were also known as what? The Gauls, who came to the saving salvation of Christ, and they established churches in this area that was named after them. So in this area, you had both Jews and Gentiles, which it makes sense when you read the book of Galatians, Galatians 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatnot, and you see he's addressing Jews and Gentiles. He's breaking things down. He's like, okay, I was told to go here. I went here to preach to the Jews, or I should say, speaking about Paul, I went here to preach to the Gentiles, and Paul was preaching to the Jews. And, he's telling the whole story. It makes sense. So I wanted to make sure I showed you that before I go to the next point, right? So he's addressing the churches of Galatia. The churches that came forth from these people, these Hebrews that were known as the Celtic, that were known as the Gauls, the ancient Picts and stuff, that ultimately came to the saving salvation of the Lord Jesus Christ. Because they knew who they were, because they kept up with these things, but they just got mixed up in all this other garbage, right? So this is going to make so much sense when you see it. I want to jump over here. So he's telling the whole story and everything, right? But so he's talking about the law. He said, we who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles. So he's addressing them because they're trying to keep the law and everything, right? Like I was telling you, some of you know this. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. So we want to go to chapter 3. Oh, foolish Galatians, which includes both Jews and Gentiles living in this area, right? But if we go down, this makes more sense when you understand it from this perspective. There is neither Jew nor Greek, because people quote this scripture and they quote it so out of context. It doesn't matter who the Jews are. He's speaking about salvation, but he's also addressing Jews and Gentiles. We see the Greeks specifically called the Celts of the day that took on these ways a specific name. You don't think that the Apostle Paul and the rest of them knew that? So watch how this makes more sense. We get more clarity on this. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one. Who? The Jews and the Gentiles. One in Christ Jesus. Because they were living in that area together. But you had people that were trying to go back under the law. You had Jews that were professing Christ, trying to go back under the law of the Old Testament. And you had Gentiles that were trying to do it, that lived in that area of Galatia. And if ye be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise. Now remember who he's speaking to. He said he's speaking to the churches of Galatia. He's not just speaking to one people, one person, or one church. He's speaking to multiple churches. And we know who the church is. The church is the people. So multiple people in that area that are in Christ and say, hey, a lot of y'all got it wrong. You're trying to go back under the law, and you're wrong. And the Galatians, the original Galatians of that area, they knew better. But he was more so addressing, he addressed the Jews in those scriptures, Galatians 1, 2, 3, and 4. But he was more so addressing the Gentiles in that area because that's who Paul, the Apostle Paul, was sent to. So, very, very interesting. I think that's about it. So with that being said, God bless each and every one of you in Jesus Christ's name. As always, stay focused for Jesus. And as you know, the truth is not debated, it is declared.
Thanks for waking up with us.